Without further ado, let's start our program by welcoming our first speaker for today, Director of Research and Consultancy of Lichu Property Consultants, Mr. Roy Amado Golez Jr.
Good afternoon, everyone who's on the call. Yeah, I was tasked by Vista Land to do a talk about the impact of the infrastructure boom of the current government to residential real estate, specifically residential condominiums. So this presentation will be cut up into 5 parts. Number one, I'll do a short presentation on roads, rails, and bridges, while in the previous presentation, it was more or less overall. This time we'll be concentrating specifically with Metro Manila. Now, the second will be what would be the influence of these infrastructure projects to the area where they're coming up and to real estate. And lastly, I'll be making a short presentation on the Vista condominium portfolio. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, why do we have currently the BBB program, and what does it mean to Metro Manila residents? Yeah, so the BBB program, or the Roads, Rails, and Bridges infrastructure projects, is really a fiscal stimulus for the economy. We are now in probably one of our worst economic recessions ever. At the end of 2020, we had a negative 9.5% GDP growth. So what the government is doing is trying to pump up the economy through infrastructure projects. The budget for these projects are thrown into the market for infrastructure with the hope that the goods and services that are being paid for will create jobs and will at least stimulate economic growth. But the problems that the roads, rails, and bridges that are solving really is to address traffic congestion in Metro Manila. So fixing that problem of traffic, the hope is that it will reduce the daily losses spent in traffic, which was estimated at 3.5 billion a day by JICA. At the same time, for us individually, we hope that the improved transit connectivity will be better from home to work. And the result, which we all hope for, would be better quality of life. Number one, it will save us 2 to 3 hours of travel time spent in traffic. And number two, this can be used more for productive work, recreation, or rest. Okay, next slide, please. In Metro Manila, we counted about 198 kilometers. That will encompass 4 roads, 4 bridges, and 6 rails. Now, we are really looking at the whole Mega Manila area. So this includes areas such as Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, as well as Bulacan and parts of Pampanga. Now, what are the benefits to the residents? Number one, this infrastructure projects connects offices in the central business districts to the homes of the workers. Okay, so we can see improved accessibility. We'll see later, the mega subway actually connects all the way to the airport, into schools, into CBDs, and of course, the added convenience of the subway and all the rail and roads make for a better location for the homes of the buyers. What does it mean? With this connectivity, wherever you decide to buy, as long as it's near the subway stations, you can now go to your office in the CBDs of Ortigas, Makati, BGC much faster. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are about 6 major central business districts in Metro Manila, and this is where most of the offices are, and where most of the offices will be built in the future. Okay, so these are, well, parts of Quezon City, Ortigas, Bonifacio Global City, Makati, Alabang, and the Bay Area. So we will show later that the connectivity will benefit primarily in Metro Manila, the office workers who work in these areas. Next slide, please. Okay, so infrastructure influence. For the roads, for example, the north-south connector road, while we say that, okay, these are all about traffic, and it's true, there will be shorter travel times from place of work to place of home. And it will be ideal for, well, now with the reduced travel time, as was mentioned earlier, you can actually travel from your home in Laguna to Makati, or from Bulacan to Ortigas in less than an hour. Um, for the rails, there will be a big improvement in terms of convenience and commuting. So areas within a 500 to 700 meters radius of the subway station, in all likelihood, will experience demand. The lifestyle that we see abroad, let's say in Europe or in Japan or Hong Kong, where people actually walk from their home to the subway or the rail and go to work, will start happening only because of the added capacity. Right now, the MRT stations are filled to the brim, and it's really not a pleasant experience lining up going into your station near your house. Now, for bridges, for example, the BGC Ortigas link, the shorter travel time from BGC to Mandaluyong will likely result to residential prices in Mandaluyong area to start catching up to prices in BGC. Not quite that high, but in all likelihood, you will see price improvements. Okay, next slide, please. Now, case study of Ayala Alabang lots. So this is what we can say a direct impact of infrastructure projects to a residential subdivision. So in 2002, when the Skyway was completed, there was a 14% growth of land prices in Ayala Alabang from the year before. And then for the next 12 years or so, the growth of the land prices flattened to about 5% per annum until 2015, when the MCX expressway was completed. And then we saw a price increase of about 20% the year previous. So we see here the direct impact of infrastructure projects opening on land values where they actually connect. Next slide, please. Okay, and the map on the right is the Mega Manila subway, and the map on the left are and the table on the left are the stations. As with the MRT2, we see that the Mega Manila subway stations are connected to the CBDs. So primarily, they will service the office workers who have offices in those areas. Now, the yellow boxes there that you see are the areas where, I think, as was mentioned by the project team, the Vista Residences projects are located. So what we can see here is that the projects of Vista Land are actually well situated with this Mega Manila subway. Okay, next slide, please. Now, the third case study that I will present is that the BGC Ortigas Link Bridge. So in this case, again, the prices of Mandaluyong, which is okay, today, there's about a 45 to 60% price difference of condominiums in BGC versus other locations across the bridge. So in Capitolio, it's about only 52%. In Ortigas CBD, about 47%, Mandaluyong 45%, and Pasig 60% of BGC. This connector road will likely directly impact the pricing of those projects very near to this bridge. As well as, of course, the other bridge, which is the Estrella Pantaleon Bridge in Makati. When it connects to the Mandaluyong side also, we will see a lot of demand and price increase in Mandaluyong. Next slide, please. Okay, so for increased, so what's the direct impact to residential real estate? Well, primarily we see better demand in terms of prices and rents. Okay, so demand, will be happening and improving due to the connectivity and convenience. So what the infra projects in Metro Manila really do is to connect places of work, places of recreation, places of worship, shopping, education, and health. Okay. What we will also see is that the improved urban transit corridors that are being built will result to in-migration of the population into the areas where they open up or end. Okay. Now, for the rents, we have a very young population in the Philippines today, about 24 years old. So there is a substantial demand for residential condominiums, especially in Metro Manila, where later we will see the number and amount of potential beds that will be needed in the next 5 to 6 years. And this will happen mostly in the CBDs or central business districts, where most of the office space are being built. Okay, and those who are looking for more discounted prices will look at the fringes of the CBDs as well as near the rail stations. They will become ideal for renters and home buyers. Now, we did a study of rents near the MRT stations, and we found out that the condominiums near the MRT stations generate about 5% to 16% premium or a higher rent than those projects much farther away. Now, in terms of prices, we see that the stations generate a premium on pricing of about 16% and higher, as well as they have better resale value. So primarily the Metro Manila infrastructure projects benefit really the office workers in the CBDs. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so office supply versus potential new residential demand. Okay, so what this slide is saying is that in the last 60 years, about 12.98 million square meters of office space today were built. But in the next 6 years, there will be about 3.5 million square meters of office space. Okay. This 3.5 million square meters of office space can correlate directly to demand of residential beds or units or rooms. Okay. The residential demand will grow with the office space supply. Okay. So if we assume a ratio of about 10 square meters of office space per employee, so that's 3.5 million divided by 10. So we're really looking at about 350,000 new jobs in the central business districts of Makati, Ortigas, Bonifacio City, Taguig, Quezon, Bay Area, and Alabang. Now, the typical ratio of jobs to residential beds is a 1-to-1 ratio, especially for the new grads. So potentially, we have about 350,000 new beds in the next 6 years. And let's say for every condo unit, it's a couple. So you will probably have about at least 175,000 potential demand of studios. Now, whether they are going to be bought or rented, and whether there will be move-outs or move-ins, will really depend on the supply. Next slide, please. Okay, so another metric we're looking at in calculating demand is how many college graduates were there or will be there every year. So in Metro Manila, we have about 155,737 new college graduates. And this is the raw material or the employees that the offices, especially the call centers and the BPOs, would look at when locating in the central business districts. So in total, if you add Bulacan, Pampanga, Cavite, and Laguna, that's actually about 250,000 new graduates. That's just 2018, 2019. So if we make it 2020, 2021, so you probably have about maybe 500, 600,000 new graduates for the last 3 years. Okay. So this translates to actual demand also of rentable residential units. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I guess this will be what most of the investors or brokers would be looking at. Okay, so what we're looking at is the MRT3 with some stations highlighted. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Us comparing the price and rent proximity. What does that mean? We compared residential condominium projects, those who are much nearer the station and those that are a bit farther. Okay. So what we found out, for example, in Quezon Avenue, the condominium much nearer to the station, MRT station, generates a premium of plus 33% in terms of residential condominium price per square meter versus a condominium that's much farther away. So that's about even if it's just 300 to 600 meters away, we see a significant price difference. And in terms of rent for the same condominiums, we see that it has a premium of about 16% on top of the other condominiums much farther away. Okay, so in Kamuning area, we found out that the price proximity is about 31% more and the rent at about 8% more. Now in Shaw, the price proximity is not as high at only 16% and rent at 5%. I think only because the samples we got were too near the Ortigas CBD. And for Magallanes, the price proximity is much more pronounced at 45% versus the condominiums much farther away and the rent at 12%. So the developments we chose here are not necessarily Vista land. So we chose developments regardless of who the developers are. Now the circles on the right, these are the projects in the fringe of the CBDs. So they're neither near the MRT stations, nor are they that near the CBDs, the central business districts. So we see that they are actually from 44 to 56% cheaper than those much nearer the MRT stations. So in this slide, we can clearly see the advantage of investing in projects that are quite accessible to the MRT stations. Ergo, when we go to the Metro Manila subway, we can expect that those projects much nearer the new subway stations will most likely also charge a higher price as well as higher rents. This in effect makes it better for an owner or investor to resell it at a better price or to rent it out to tenants. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so for the Vista Residences portfolio, what we found out when they asked us to evaluate and take a look was that the portfolio of Vista Residences is very well positioned in locations near CBDs or near stations, and that they have proven capital growth. Okay, in fact, they range from about an average of 11%, 9 to 11% per year in increase in pricing, or they also have that's on top of the rental income that you get when you when you lease out the units. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is a map of the projects of Vista Residences. So the top left, you have the Manila projects. Top right, you have Quezon City. Then you have Mandaluyong, Pasig, Makati, BGC, and Taguig. So if you look at the map, you can see that they are actually all along major highways and major roads, as well as in the new infrastructure locations. Okay, next slide, please. And lastly, why should you invest in Vista? Well, they have already a proven track record in terms of capital value appreciation. So if you take a look at the squiggly line that forms a box, that's the capital gain per square meter of projects in various areas in Metro Manila. So in Makati, you have Laureano de Trevi. It was launched at 84,000 per square meter in 2006. Today, the price is around 318,000 per square meter. So that's a gain of about 234,000 per square meter, or about an annual growth rate of 9%. Okay. Now, the currency in Ortigas, which was launched in 2010, you can see also a 10% annual growth rate in terms of pricing. So if you had invested in these projects in those years, you would have seen your money grow by about 9 to 10%. And if you had bought into Laureano de Trevi and rented it out, you would have also probably earned around 6 to 9% rental income. Okay, so why should you invest in Vista? Well, based on their performance, based on experience, we can see a stable and steady capital appreciation, and that the locations are in demand. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and to close this presentation, I'd like to say that the current COVID situation is presenting us really with an opportunity to invest in real estate. Most developers nowadays offer, especially Vista, easy payment terms as well as stretched payment terms, making the monthly amortization very affordable. That should be an opportunity that we should take. Okay. Today, we are already at probably the lowest point of our economy. We are in a recession. But any investment now in real estate will most likely only see growth because post-pandemic, or after the vaccines have been rolled out and everybody or most have the vaccines already, we can expect the economy to start growing. We can expect the economy to be more positive. We can expect the economy to open up. So it's wise for us to position ourselves, our money, our investments today to take advantage of the upside. Okay. There are many choices out there, but we see that Vista Land has already a proven track record of completion and delivery. They're also in good locations and have very attractive price appreciation. So when looking at an investment in condominiums, it would be wise to take a look at, are they in the CBD? Are they near infrastructure projects, especially the upcoming subways or the MRT? Because we can expect that these projects will have better rents and higher resale values. Okay. Thank you everyone for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you.
Thank you, Mr. Golez, for sharing that really comprehensive presentation on the boom of the infrastructures in Metro Manila.